Every winter, I kept a large stack of firewood behind my house. It was enough to keep my family warm through the cold months. Then I noticed the pile getting smaller. At first, I thought I had simply miscounted. The next morning, another section was missing. This time, I knew something wasn't right. I checked the shed, the driveway, and the surrounding property. Nothing explained where the wood had gone. Then I found fresh tire tracks near the woodpile. Someone had driven close to my property during the night. I followed the tracks toward the neighborhood road. That's when I noticed something even stranger. Karen suddenly had a huge new firewood stack. It looked remarkably similar to the wood that had disappeared from mine. I didn't accuse her. Instead, I decided to start documenting everything. I installed a security camera facing my own property. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wanted evidence. If someone was taking my wood, I wanted to know who. For several nights, nothing happened. Then the camera recorded movement near the firewood pile. The same vehicle appeared more than once. I finally had a pattern. The vehicle belonged to someone connected to the HOA. I still didn't jump to conclusions. I saved the recordings and continued watching. Then I recognized the person approaching my woodpile. Karen had been taking my firewood. She acted as if the wood simply belonged to everyone in the neighborhood. But my camera recorded everything clearly. Now I needed to decide what to do. I could have confronted her immediately. Instead, I chose the smarter option. I gathered the recording, photographs, and property records. I wanted the truth to speak for itself. Then I came up with a harmless way to expose the thief. I prepared several ordinary hollow novelty logs. Inside, I placed nothing dangerous, just harmless sawdust and bright washable marking powder. I wanted a clear visual clue if someone moved them. I placed the harmless logs right where the missing wood had been. From a distance, they looked like ordinary pieces of firewood. The camera was already watching the area. Then I waited. The following afternoon, Karen returned. She looked around before approaching the stack. Then she began moving pieces toward her cart. I knew the camera was recording everything. Karen picked up one of the hollow logs. She had no idea it wasn't ordinary firewood. She placed it with the rest of her load. Then she walked away. A few minutes later, the hollow log opened. A harmless cloud of sawdust spilled across her clean patio. Bright, washable marking powder made the situation impossible to ignore. Karen stood there staring at the mess. I watched the footage again. There was no guessing anymore. The recording showed exactly what had been happening. I saved every clip. Karen immediately called the HOA office. She complained about the mess in her yard. What she didn't realize was that she had created the evidence herself, and now the HOA would have to answer for it. An HOA security worker came to investigate. Karen claimed someone had deliberately caused trouble on her property. The worker asked where the log had come from. Karen suddenly became very quiet. I showed the worker my security footage. I also showed the records proving the firewood belonged to me. There was no shouting. There didn't need to be. The HOA board reviewed the footage themselves. They watched Karen take the wood from my property. Then they saw the same pattern repeated several times. The room became completely silent. Karen tried to explain that she thought the wood was community firewood. I pointed out that it had been stacked behind my private property line. The security footage showed her returning repeatedly. Her explanation wasn't convincing. We checked the property boundary together. The firewood pile was entirely inside my lot. There was no shared storage area. There was no HOA permission to take anything from it. Once the facts came out, the neighborhood understood what happened. People had assumed the missing wood was simply being used by me. Nobody realized someone had been taking it. The camera footage changed everything. Karen eventually returned what she still had. She placed the wood back beside my shed. I accepted it without making a scene. The important thing was that the stealing had stopped. The HOA issued Karen a formal warning. The message was simple. Private property had to be respected. No resident could simply take another person's belongings. The rule applied to everyone. After that meeting, my firewood stayed exactly where I left it. Nobody touched the stack again. The security camera remained in place. And I finally stopped counting missing logs. Karen started keeping her distance from my property. There were no more surprise visits, no more missing firewood, no more excuses. Eventually, the whole thing became a neighborhood story. People joked about the mysterious hollow log. I always reminded them it was just a harmless way to document the theft. The real lesson was about respecting boundaries. When winter finally arrived, my firewood supply was still full. I had enough to keep the house warm all season. The stack stayed untouched. For once, there was nothing missing. I never needed revenge. I only needed evidence, patience, and a harmless way to expose what was happening. The HOA learned that private property isn't community property. And Karen finally learned to leave my firewood alone. In the end, my firewood stayed on my property where it belonged. The HOA had the evidence, the neighbors knew the truth, and the stealing stopped. Sometimes the best HOA karma isn't destruction. It's letting the fact expose the person responsible. Like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from.